Hi, and welcome to Let's Chat. I'd like to thank our sponsor, River Valley Community Bank, for making this show possible. I'm your host, Valerie Costa, and chatting with me today is Katie McCamant, Board President of Bear Yuba Land Trust. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you, Valerie. Pleasure to be here.
I am so thrilled to have you here because Bear Yuba Land Trust does so much good in our community, from our trails to our open spaces. So why don't you tell me a little bit about who Bear Yuba Land Trust is and what you do?
Yeah, Bear Yuba Land Trust is a local nonprofit, started in 1990, so quite a while ago now, and has been building steam over time. So our mission is to save and protect the important lands of Nevada County and surround. So that is both forest, open space, but also agricultural lands.
That's wonderful. So how do you accomplish that mission?
Well, we do that by really engaging in the community in so many different ways and working with landowners. I think people are often confused that we buy land, and we actually usually don't buy land. We're working with landowners around Nevada County, and particularly those with, like the large ranches or the big parcels. And many of them are looking at, saving land for legacy for, many, many, many generations behind. So we work with them to put a conservation or an agricultural easement on their property so that it can't be subdivided and broken up into smaller parcels.
That is such a wonderful thing. It's so important to preserve our agricultural land as we see more and more land being encroached on to build tract housing. While housing is important, preservation of our agricultural land and open spaces is equally important. So,
yeah, and I don't really see those things in conflict. Mm-hmm. I think it's more that looking where's the appropriate places to build housing and what are the important lands for us to protect.
Yes, I completely agree, and what a wonderful thing. So tell me about some of the lands you have protected thus far.
Yeah, well, I think one of our accomplishments a few years ago was working with the Robinson family on the Robinson Ranch lands. So they are now in conservation and agricultural easements to protect those. And they're part of the Blue Oak Woodlands area, which is along the sort of southern border of Nevada County. And it's actually one of the most important biological areas. I think people don't appreciate how important the Blue Oak Woodlands is. And so that's been an area of real focus, tying all the way into Spenceville Wildlife Area.
Oh, how
so
wonderful.
So when you can start to get contiguous lands, you can really make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. That's really good for the wildlife, and that's important as well.
Exactly.
So I know you recently had another win in that category. You just had a land purchase, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and so this is one of the cases where the land trust actually purchased the land, and it's 128 acres. They're on Ridge Road, called the Wildflower Ridge Project. So it's right across the street, literally from Grass Valley. So that has many advantages. One is just the accessibility. So we already have trails on that land, and we'll be improving the trails there. But also, as the edge of Grass Valley, it's a place where I think it's really important to manage a very diverse forest, and really thinking about fire safety as well as diversity and wildlife. And we really hope to be a model of that in an area that is really changing as what is the best way to manage these lands that are directly adjacent to urban areas.
The wildlife-urban interface is very important, and it becomes more important as we have more housing in these rural areas, such as here. You had mentioned having trails there, and I know that's another big thing you do. You can't go hiking here without seeing a wonderful Bear Yuba Land Trust sign. So tell me about that. What do you do for the trails? Do you build them? Do you maintain them?
Both, yeah. That's how I got connected with the Land Trust. It's like, wow, who's building all these great trails, right? Because they're ever growing. So that's a big part of our work, because I think it ties directly to our mission of saving land, because if people get out on the land, they care more about it. So we do both. We build new trails. We work with landowners on private property as well as public properties. for instance, Hirschman's Pond the land is actually owned by the city of Nevada City, but we built and maintained that trail.
That's such a beautiful trail too.
Yeah, and so I just love the trails because I think it's an ever-growing network, and frankly, I think it was a big part of keeping us sane during the pandemic, right? Is being able to get out on the trails.
Yes, and that we explored a different trail every weekend during the nice weather during
we have
COVID.
Over 50 miles of trails now.
Wow.
So, and we couldn't do that without the volunteers, because particularly maintaining them, but building them as well. I mean, it's really fabulous volunteers that show up and help make that happen.
That's wonderful. So I know that Independence Trail, had the severe damage, or was it fire, or was it a flood? I know
it was fire.
It was fire.
The river fire.
And I know that you were doing some work on that. How's that going? Has that been reopened?
No, it hasn't been reopened yet, but we're working closely with state parks to get it rebuilt. It was, a really important trail because it was really one of the first trails out in nature, in the forest, that was truly accessible, whether you were in a wheelchair and a walker or had a stroller. And so we want to protect that legacy that John Olmsted built. So we're working with state parks to get it rebuilt. It's very much in process as an ongoing project.
So it sounds like you could use some more volunteers for that.
Always.
If one wanted to volunteer, first, what opportunities are there? You had mentioned maintaining and building trails. What other volunteer opportunities do you have at Bear Yuba Land?
Well, we have volunteers in the office. We have volunteers that are not only the building and maintaining trails, but keeping an eye on them. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities. So the best thing is to go to our website. And there you'll see different ways you can volunteer, as well as upcoming events. So we have a lot of events. For instance, in June will be our celebration of trails. So we have a variety of events to help engage the public, to know the trails, as well as a street party there on Commercial Street. So that'll be fun. But
if I'm not mistaken, that's an annual event.
That's
right?
an annual event, right? So you can look for the celebration of trails every year.
Yes, and it's. You have different trails. Is it like a challenge, if I remember correctly?
Well, yes. What we did last year and we'll do again this year is the Star Challenge. So there's stars that are made by a local organization here that are posted along the trails. And so what we found is a lot of people took the kids out because, kids get really excited about finding stars out there. And so it was a great way to really engage all different generations.
Oh, how fun. So it's like a star scavenger hunt.
Exactly.
Oh, how fun.
Exactly. And so that's what, I think we really want to look at different ways that we could engage people with nature. We also have an annual Nature Fest that is really geared toward kids, where you have a scavenger hunt. So if you bring the kids to the trails, we'll send them out on a scavenger hunt and help connect them to nature.
Oh, how wonderful. And so what's next for Bear Yuba Land Trust? Do you have any big projects or programs that you are looking into?
Well, we're facing budget cuts because as the state faces budget cuts right now, and those, we get a lot of the ability to buy land and to build trails. And conservation easement is funded by state programs. A lot of them now tied to our changing climate, restoring wetlands and rivers and all of those things. So we are facing, we're seeing that the current grants are fine, but next year will be tougher. So always expanding how we're funded. We really depend both on generous donors at all different levels, from the $100 to $100,000. Private donors are a huge part, as well as state and federal programs to fund this. So that's our ongoing challenge. Our work is only limited by money, and money that also pays for staff. We are really blessed. We have a fabulous executive director with Aaron Tarr and a really strong staff. And so, supporting them, I think, as board members, that's our job, is to really support our staff and the organization in that way.
Yes, and I know coming from the nonprofit world myself, all the grantors want to fund the sexy projects, but no one wants to fund the person who's like making the phone calls and like creating the projects, and it can be very frustrating. So
yeah, it really takes the whole team, right?
It absolutely does. It absolutely takes the people behind the projects to make it work. So I think donations are a great way to do that for general expenses.
Yes, indeed.
And I'm sure that people would be happy to donate for project expenses as well. But do you have, I'm sure you do, some kind of legacy giving program as well?
We do, and we're really looking at that. So there's the Oak Tree Society is sort of the larger donors. Again, very local. We are really dependent on the local population. And as well as looking at planned giving, because we've had several total surprises to us where when someone passed, they left a house or left a property. And that's such a gift because it allows us to move forward on projects that we might not have the funds to do otherwise.
How wonderful. So beyond volunteering or donating, what can people do to help further your mission?
Well, I think just bringing people, when someone comes to visit, take them out on the trails and tell them how those trails exist. There's a lot of information on our website as well as the trails portal. So if you're like, well, where are all these trails that you're talking about? Just go to the website. And there's information about all the Bear Yuba Land Trust trails there and how to access them.
Yeah, that is a wonderful, wonderful site. It is so helpful. That's what we used during COVID when we went out on a different trail every week.
Right.
We'd be like, what trail do we want to do this week? And it's a really fantastic resource. And Bear Yuba Land Trust is a wonderful organization doing so much good. Before we go, is there anything else that you would like the community to know about what Bear Yuba Land Trust does or how they can help?
Yeah, well, I think, there's many great nonprofits in our community and many, core causes that really deserve everybody's support. For me, what Bear Yuba Land Trust does is look at the long term for generations to come. And so I think that's what really drove me, is protecting the lands over many, many generations for not only our grandkids, but our great-grandkids and people a long time. And that's what really got me excited about being part of it and supporting this organization.
Well, how wonderful. So if you want to donate or volunteer or just learn more or find a trail, visit the Bear Yuba Land Trust website at
bylt.org.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Katie, for coming in today and chatting, and I wish you the greatest success with your mission.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
It was my pleasure. We'll see you next time on Let's Chat.